First, I want to acknowledge that, what? Am I still here?
You're still here?
Okay, I got a notice. And it keeps coming back.
We can hear you. Your screen looks like it's frozen, but we can see the slides. And yeah.
Okay. It crashed and came right back. Let me try that again. I hope this isn't what crashed. No, that's not what I want to do. I want to do that. Okay. Livestock and Local Communities was one of the cohort challenges offered through the INFEWS-ER that we've been talking about. And the challenge in itself acknowledges stakeholder roles and perspectives in the relationships between food animal production, local resources, and local communities. An important point that I want to mention at the outset is that the nature of the stakeholders in these two challenges, these were two basically the same, but in 2 different years, is the nature of the stakeholders was different from what we've seen before. The stakeholders that we mentioned earlier were the clients to a large extent, and even the one Luis just mentioned in the Virtual Resource Center, we're the clients. In this case, the stakeholders, the advisors were really the clients because we were asking the question, and the stakeholders were providing background information for the participants. So for the sake of recording, I'm John Klassen, and together with Allison Deviney and Aaron Cordes, who couldn't be here today, we're happy to bring you today our perspective as the advisors on this cohort challenge. We also want to acknowledge Jacek Kozioł at Iowa State, was also one of our co-advisors and helped develop and oversee the project. We're talking about experiences from 2 different cohorts of students that we worked with in 2 different academic years with a very similar challenge. It was a different, the challenge is described here on the first slide, and the difference was in the geographical scope of the cohort. We focused on South Dakota for the first team and North Carolina for the second. Of course, the cohort participation was voluntary. The important part is that the participants had little to no knowledge of their teammates or us as advisors at the start of the project. And because they were from different parts of the country, they also had little knowledge about the specific region or the problems that we were looking at. These states were chosen because of our own research and extension experiences, our connections, our own interaction with key stakeholders in these regions, and that was the stakeholders here again are the ones that can provide background data and context to the students. And as advisors, we initiated most of those connections because they were part of our network, as I mentioned. We recognize, and I think the students would agree, that we had some constraints on time, the virtual nature of all our collaborations, all of our meetings, our own stakeholder network, as well informed as they are, it was limited to the ones that we actually knew. So we had those constraints, and those impacted the outcome. But the stakeholder engagement was still very impactful. So when sharing their work with the next slide, when sharing their work with the broader INFEWS-ER team during the symposium, both cohorts showed these graphics to demonstrate their evolution of knowledge and the progress through the project, and we can link that back to stakeholder engagement. The perspective and interpretation of quantitative data collected for these projects and what those data mean, those have to be informed by experience and understanding of the system under consideration. And since our participants didn't have that direct experience, stakeholder engagement was critical. The cohort members had, like I said, little experience with that, but they gained that perspective and background and understanding from the stakeholders. And with that broader perspective, it changed the understanding of the project, as illustrated first in the figure on the left. But it also changed their perception of their own knowledge about the system, as seen on the figure on the right. And this is something that maybe the shape of this figure may be something familiar to some of you that have dealt with this before. In itself, these diagrams didn't just appear for this symposia on their first iteration. Even the one on the left, it shows some progression from where we started to where they ended up, but it doesn't show the many iterations that went on in between there. In general, what this demonstrates is a lot of changes, ups and downs in their understanding, in their perspective, and in fact, in their confidence of the system. And those changes in development of their understanding also then influenced the quantitative data that they ended up collecting over the course of the project. Now, Allison will talk about the rest of the...
Yeah. So one thing that INFEWS-ER really emphasizes is transdisciplinarity, which meant that one of the challenges for the students coming into these cohorts was figuring out how to use their individual training and personal experiences to understand and contribute to their cohort challenge. And stakeholder engagement really allowed these students to develop a sort of collective contextual understanding of the challenge systems. And through that, they were able to formulate this common language for working together. So this was an iterative communicative process, and it helped foster the collaboration that made each of our cohorts a high-functioning team. And what we saw in both cohorts was this combination of a desire to better understand the system, but also to recognize the need and actually an appreciation for diverse perspectives. And that recognition and understanding are what allowed these students to identify the need for and develop or adapt the methods that they came up with for data analysis. And in doing that, they really integrated those different perspectives that they gained. So in summary, the lessons that we learned are three things mainly. One is that team evolution is a learning process. It was for both us as advisors and for the students. And this really required a lot of time and patience, because in both of our cohort cases, it took at least 3 months for the team to rally behind the challenge that they were given and really propel it forward on their own. The second lesson is that stakeholder engagement helped build a common vision, because it humanized these regional issues that these transdisciplinary groups of students were coming together to try to work with. They were coming from around the country, and as John pointed out, really didn't know very much about these regions when they started. And the third point is that stakeholder engagement really helped them in that way develop that contextual system understanding that they needed. So as these cohorts were exploring these diverse perspectives, as well as their own biases that they were bringing into these challenges, talking with the stakeholders helped them become that high-functioning team they were trying to be in order to solve these challenges. And this is really evidenced in the manuscripts that each cohort produced. So we really couldn't be more proud of them.